Hey everyone. So I wanted to hop on and talk to you guys today because I have been going through a really intense time with this work. And if you do a lot of self-growth work, a lot of internal work, you're going to know what I'm talking about. There are times where this work can feel really heavy, really difficult, really challenging. And that's really the season I've been in for a while now. And I wanted to take a minute to talk about why that is, why we go through these really intense phases when we're doing this self-growth work, and what's actually happening there. So the work we're doing here is really intense, right? We are reprogramming our brains, our lives, ourselves, right? You are peeling back just layers and years of conditioning. You're shifting limiting beliefs. You are rewriting stories, and you are up-leveling who you are. You're upgrading your identity. This work can be really, really intense because we're digging really, really deep into the deepest, darkest corners of our internal being. And what you find there can be kind of like dark and messy sometimes. So it can be really, really intense as you start to bring a lot of this stuff to the surface and clear it and move on from it. So that's really where I've been lately, is in this very like kind of dark, sticky, resistant phase that's been feeling really, really hard. And what I've realized is that when you go through this process of up-leveling yourself, up-leveling your identity, now this is some of the my favorite work when it comes to self-growth. I love working with who I am. I truly believe that if you want to get to where you're going, the best thing you can do is up-level who you are showing up as each day to be in alignment with that future reality that you are desiring. So upgrade who you are, and you snap yourself into alignment with what you're desiring to create, do, be, or have in your life. So identity work is so powerful because it can be done right now in this moment. It's just with you and yourself. But up-leveling your identity can be some of the most intense work you do. And what I've realized over the years is it's because a sort of dying off process happens when you're doing identity work. What happens is that who you have been up to this point has to die off in order for you to become who you are meant to be, or to become the next level version of yourself that you're moving into now. So your current self, the person you've been up to this point, the person who's created your current reality, actually has to die off in order for you to step into your next level self. And this dying off process can be pretty intense, and it makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you're no longer who you have been, then who are you, right? So there's this kind of disconnect with your identity. There's a lot of uncertainty and fear in that of, if I'm not this person, then who am I? Who am I becoming? And that can bring up so much uncertainty, so much fear, just really a lot of kind of negative, icky, resistant energy. So if you're no longer the person you've been for so long, who are you? And as we know, our brains resist change. Your brain doesn't want you to change, right? Your brain wants you to stay right where you are, because where you are is known. And since your brain knows where you are currently, it views that as being safer than venturing out into the unknown. So staying where you are is safer than changing to your brain, even if your current reality isn't exactly ideal. To your brain, it still kind of knows what to expect. It knows what's coming. It understands your current life. It understands who you are currently. So it doesn't want you to change. So your brain does everything it can to stop you from changing. It resists change with everything it has. So when you decide to move to your next level self, you are literally fighting up against your own brain that is doing everything it can to keep you where you are so that it keeps you safe. You know, I think at some point you have to just ask yourself, am I willing to let go of who I have been in order to become who I am meant to be? Am I willing to release who I've been up to this point in order to step into my next level self? And am I willing to let my previous self, my current self, die off so that my next best elevated self can actually bloom into this space? Are you willing to release who you have been so that you can become the version of yourself who is in alignment with the life you're craving to create? And I think this question is really everything, right? This question is everything. Because if you aren't willing to deal with the discomfort, if you aren't willing to deal with the resistance, if you aren't willing to do the work to coach yourself through all of the hurdles that your brain's putting in front of you, then you're never going to become who you're meant to be. You're just going to stay who you have been. You're going to stay the same person, the same identity, creating the same life over and over again. But if you are willing to deal with the resistance, if you're willing to deal with the dark times, the hard times, then you will be able to let your old self die off to make room for your next level self. I think that you have to find it within yourself. You have to be willing to wade through the muddy waters. You have to be willing to work through the resistance. You have to be willing to find your way through the shadows so that you can step back into the light. And if you're really willing to let go, if you're willing to let yourself die off so that you can become your next level self, then you're going to be truly able to expand into who you're meant to be. This is kind of similar to like plants or flowers. How often does a part of a plant or part of a flower have to actually die off to make room for new growth, right? This happens every fall, every winter. Plants die back, right? Seemingly die away, but then they seem to grow back every single spring. And that's really what you're doing here, right? Your previous self, your self that has already bloomed to its completion, has to then die away for this next level of you to be able to bloom, to grow, okay? So I want you to ask yourself today, am I willing to let go of who I have been in order to become who I am meant to be? Am I willing to go through this dying off process of letting go of the person who has created my current reality to become the next level version of myself who's going to create my next level life? Now, this is really a never-ending process of unbecoming and becoming. And I want to be able to tell you that it gets easier over time, but I don't know if it really does. Every kind of dying off phase that I feel like I go through is different. Some are easier, some are harder, some I feel more resistant, some less, but it's always there. It's always difficult to let go of who you've been in order to become who you will be next. But over time, you get better at it. You get better at dealing with the resistance. You get better at dealing with the discomfort. You get comfortable with the discomfort even. You become stronger, you become more resilient. So even though it may feel uncomfortable, you know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You know where you're headed. You know that there's a reason for the discomfort, that you are becoming your next level self, your higher self, your elevated version, right? You're becoming your next level identity so that you can expand your life. So I want you to really think about this today. When do you think is the last time you went through this dying off process of your identity? Or are you in it right now, right? Are you in this really uncomfortable, resistant feeling space of letting go, of letting your old self die off to make room for your next level self? And really ask yourself on the days especially where it is so hard, where you're feeling so much resistance, where you're wondering why you even do this work. Ask yourself, am I willing to unbecome who I've been? Am I willing to let go of who I have been? Am I willing to let my old self die off in order to become who I am meant to be? In order to become the elevated version of myself that is in alignment with the life that I want to create now? Woo. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, you guys. I hope this video was really helpful. I find that this concept of really thinking of this dying off process gives purpose to the dark times. It gives purpose to those times of resistance, to those times of turmoil and change. And it really helps me to remind myself of okay, you're going through this dying off process. You are up-leveling your identity, but oh my gosh, just think of all the amazing things that are going to happen next. Think of all the amazing things that your next level self is going to be able to create. All right, I'll see you guys next time.